All right. Good afternoon, everyone. Hope you guys are having a great day. Right? All right. Welcome to our session today, Building Lightning Components with Salesforce DX. My name is Vishwa. I'm a Developer Relation Associate here at Salesforce. I have my co-speaker, Shashank Srivatsava, here.
Hi, good afternoon, everybody. I'm a Developer Relations Manager at Salesforce. And today, before we talk about anything else, one extremely important thing. Yeah, forward-looking statements. You might make some forward-looking statements, so don't make any blind decisions based on what we're talking about today. Okay? So today's agenda, pretty packed agenda. It's like a combination talk between building components and Salesforce DX, just to give you an understanding of how things work together. So we'll talk about what are lightning components, how do they look like, where can they be used, and we'll also see how we can work with Salesforce DX while working on lightning components, right? It's a pretty packed agenda, packed with a lot of features and long demos. So let's park the questions towards the end. We'll make sure we have some time towards the end. With that, let me hand over to Vishwa, who's going to talk about lightning components first.
All right, so let's get started with lightning components. So before we get into lightning components, so let's begin with lightning experience. So how many of you have used lightning experience here? Awesome, great, that's a good count. So if you have ever used lightning experience, it actually means that you have already used lightning components. So let's see how this lightning experience is actually made of. So lightning experience is made up of something called lightning pages. So when you once log into Salesforce org, so you see the home page, the object record pages like account, contact, opportunity. So all these lightning pages together make the lightning experience. So in return, these lightning pages are made of something called experience components. So what are these experience components? So experience components can be a standard component which Salesforce provides, or it can be a custom component, what you would build as a developer, or any third-party components which are available on the App Exchange. So if you see the example here on the screen, we are on the opportunity homepage, where you can see there are multiple components embedded into this page, so which are highlighted in red. So we have a highlights panel, we have a tab, we have a publisher, which we have a news. So all these components have its own functionality and a logic within it. So let's take an example of highlights panel. So it's actually showing up some important information of the opportunity, like the opportunity name, close date, and the amount, which is actually bringing the data from the opportunity record. And it also has few buttons here which actually perform some actions with it when you click them. So these lightning experience lightning components are actually made up of something called base components. So base components are building blocks of the UI. If you have ever purchased Legos, you get little bits, right? So you can compare base components as the little bits which you get with the Legos. So base components are actually, if you see the screen here, we have few base components which are highlighted. So we have an icon, we have a label, we have an avatar, we have an icon and spinner. So all these are base components where you can make use of them and combine together and make an experience component which has some functionality. So we have seen, here are a few base components, what you can see on my screen here. So we have some field components like input field, text area, file upload. So you can actually make use of these base components where it reduces the amount of code you write, maybe the markup and this CSS styling what you. So this actually incorporates the lightning design systems into the lightning components and the accessibility to it. So these are kind of main building blocks of the UI which you can make use of. So let's see what actually component is made of. So when you actually create a lightning component, it actually creates a component bundle. So component bundle is actually a lightning component UI markup itself and all its resources. So once you create a lightning component, so here is a bundle which looks like, so we have a component which actually holds the entire component UI markup. And we have a controller, which is a client-side JavaScript, which has the logic within it. So we have other resources like helper, style, design, SVG, which has its own resources. Like documentation has, you can make the documentation itself inside it, where you can tell other developers how to make use of this lightning component. So we have another resource called SVG, which actually holds the icon for this lightning component. this is how the component look like. So let's see a code snippet how a component look like and a JavaScript controller look like. So here is an example. I have an Aura component or a Lightning component which I have made, which uses a base component called Lightning button, which has a label called Click Me. So once you click this button, Click Me, it actually has some functionality which is invoking the JavaScript. So we have a JavaScript function below here, which actually has a function which actually changes the text what you see on the screen once you click this Lightning button. So if you see the screen here, this has a simple logic which actually changes the font when you click the button. But what if you want to use data into your Lightning? Oops. Yeah, sorry for that. So what if you want to bring data into this Lightning component? So basically, you can make use of the server-side Apex controller, where you can define your own logic within it. You can write your own methods or DML operations like create, update, delete, or all the operations. Yeah, sorry, here we are. So that is one side where you can make use of server-side, and you can actually invoke this Apex controller from your JavaScript, which performs all the logic which is defined inside this Apex controller. So this is one way of bringing data into the Lightning component. So there is another way where you can don't need to write any Apex controller, but you can still bring data. So that is something called Lightning Data Service, where you can make use of Lightning Data Service and bring the data into your Lightning components. So if you're familiar with Visualforce, actually, so you can think Lightning Data Service as a standard controller, which in a Visualforce. So this is about Lightning Service. We have spoke about what is a Lightning component, what is a base component, and we have seen how to bring the logic into the Lightning component. We have also seen how to bring data into Lightning component. But how to bring this Lightning component, or how to use this Lightning component, or way to use this Lightning component. So you can use Lightning component in various places. So you can make use of this Lightning component in Lightning pages, where you can make use of App Builder, drag and drop all those components into a page which makes a functional page with experience components. You can also use them in quick actions. Once you click them, you have some Lightning component which comes in. You can also override the standard buttons what Salesforce provides. You can also use these Lightning components within the flows. And you can also use them into the communities builder, where you can drag and drop within the community builder. And you can use this in the standalone Lightning applications. Also, you can make use of these Lightning components in any other external applications with a feature called Lightning Out, which is currently beta. So enough talk. Let's see in a demo where we can see how we can build a Lightning component and how that looks like and how simple it looks like. So let me bring my developer org onto the screen. Let me maximize this. All right. So I'm on my developer org, and I have navigated to the sales application by default. So I'm on one of the contacts. So let me go to the contact first. So I'm here on the contact page where I have a couple of contact records. Let me select one of the contact, Andy here, Andy Yang. So if you see the screen here, the contact record page actually landed as by default onto the related list. So let's say I want to have some important information apart from this, what you see on the screen here, or else more information. So we'll build a simple component which actually displays some data from this particular contact. So for that, let me go to Setup, go to Developer Console, and go to the file, and let's create a new component. So File, let me go to Lightning Components. There you go. So let's name this component as Quick Contact View, and hit on Submit. So once we create this Lightning component, you can actually see there is an component bundle which is created, which has its all resources. Hope you are able to see. Yeah, perfect. So here is a list of all the resources. So basically, we are going to prominently work on component as of now. Let me close this off. So let me quickly bring some code so that we can expedite our, don't take much time in building this component. So here is a simple component where I'm bringing the code here. Let me remove all the content here and bring the code. All right. So let's see how what this component actually does. So we have just created a component called Quick Contact View. here, which actually implements 3 interfaces. The first one is available for all page types. This interface actually makes this component available on all the Lightning pages. So we have another interface called available for record home, which makes this component available on the record home pages. And we have another interface called has record ID, which actually passes the record ID into this Lightning component. So within this component, we are making use of another container-based component called Lightning card, which has a title, quick view, and an icon name as standard contact, which is the standard icon, what you see in the Lightning design system. So within this container card, I have another base component which I have used, which is an output field, where I have given the field names like first name, last name, email, phone. And if you observe this code, this is actually embedded within another base component called record view form, which is something required to display the data on the UI. So this is how a simple component can be built. Let us save this component and see how this looks on the UI. Let me save this. All right. So let me go back to my developer org. So here I'm on my contact page, so I don't have any contact here. So let me go to setup, and let's edit this page. So here, once you click on edit, actually you are navigated to the Lightning app builder, where you can see the left panel. We have list of standard component what Salesforce provides. So underneath that, we have something what we just built under the custom components, the quick contact view. So let us bring this onto the page here under the top right corner above the activity component. So let us drop here, and let us save this page, activate it, and make this page, let's make this as org default, and click on save. So let's go back to the contact page. And you can see the component which we just built here, which is actually showing you a view, a container view, which is inside a container view. It has the title what we gave as quick view, and is also containing the icon of the contact. And it has all the 4 fields, the first name, last name, email, business, along with its records value within it. So this is how a simple, this is how easy you can build a Lightning component using App Builder and bring it onto the UI. So let's bring back our presentation here. So we have seen how to build a Lightning component using an app builder and developer console. So let's see how the new features, the developer experience, how you can make of Salesforce DX and build this Lightning components. So Shashank, going to cover the Salesforce DX part. Over to you, Shashank.
Thank you so much, Misha. Can everybody hear me? All right. OK, so we spoke about Lightning components. What are they? How do they look like? How do we create them? Where do we use them and stuff? Right, so now we're going to talk about the developer experience in building these components through Salesforce DX. Right, before we talk about Salesforce DX, let's just have a look at what are the modern software processes and tools that are in prevalence these days. Things like everything being driven from source code versus a single org that is familiar with Salesforce developers. It's about team collaboration. It's about continuous delivery. It's about agile release methodologies. It's about easily available environments and easily disposable environments and stuff. Right? Salesforce DX is basically made to help you with that. Right? Salesforce DX supports team collaboration. It helps you be open and prescriptive in the tools that you actually choose for your development processes, for your application lifecycle management. It helps you automate your delivery through continuous integration, continuous delivery, and continuous deployment methodologies, right? And how does it do that? It helps you, does that by helping you externalize your source code from a Salesforce org into a version control system, right? It helps you adapt using version control instead of relying on a Salesforce org for the source of truth, right? The source of truth can be externalized using Salesforce DX, and we'll see how that can be done and stuff, right? And it's most importantly built for the enterprise. So that's what makes Salesforce DX the modern Salesforce developer experience, right? This is a little landscape of all the things that are under the Salesforce DX umbrella. Salesforce DX is not like a single feature or a license. It's basically an umbrella term for features and tools that we are providing to help you have a better developer experience on the Salesforce platform, right? Starting from your coding phase, where we have the Salesforce CLI to help you with accessing various features of Salesforce DX with just very simple commands, right? And then it could be a choice of text status or IDEs, right? And the suggestions that Salesforce DX comes up with, which is basically the new recommended text editor is Visual Studio Code text editor, which comes with extensions for Salesforce DX features, right? So, and you're also free to basically choose any text editor that you choose, because that's still possible. You don't have to rely on the tools that we ask you to use. The same applies for continuous integration and continuous delivery as well, right? Salesforce provides Heroku integration very easily, but you are also always free to choose whatever continuous integration and continuous delivery tools and services you want to use, right? And then there is the development environments angle, where there is a new kind of org called Scratch orgs that has been introduced through Salesforce DX. Scratch orgs are basically your own personal Salesforce environment, right? As a developer, you just want to basically build something quick and have a look at how things work, right? See what that component actually does, right? You don't need a developer edition org, or you don't need a sandbox to do that. You can make use of a Scratch org, and also make use of the tight integration it has with the Salesforce CLI to quickly do things, and we'll also see all of this in the demo, right? And then things like release management, right? Most of you might have used change sets. Anybody has used change sets? Anybody never heard of change sets? Nobody, right? It's impossible, because that's the only way you could push changes between environments, build something in sandbox, push it to another sandbox or to production, right? With the new packaging model that Salesforce DX is coming up with to help you with agile releases, you will be able to use this new packaging model, which we are calling second generation packaging, to be able to deploy from a version control system to any environment of your choice. Could be a sandbox, could be a DE, or could be a production, or anything. Right? We'll not talk much about packaging in our session today, but there is a really good session tomorrow that I'll guide you to. Feel free to check it out for sure. So with that, let's get into our demo and see Salesforce DX in action. All right, so we'll start with the CLI, where we'll just start with just clearing our screen first. Right, the command for the Salesforce CLI is sfdx, and beauty of sfdx is if you're new to the tool, you can always just do -- help for any of the commands and get some help on using these commands, right? So I do sfdx -- help. It gives me 3 help topics. One is force, plugins, and update. Plugins and update are basically stuff that we don't have to discuss today. So we'll talk about mainly the tools for sfdx force, right? So I do sfdx force. Let me just do -- help. And there's a bunch of commands that I can actually run for various things I want to do, right? If I want to work with Apex, I can use the force Apex topic. If I want to work with Lightning, I can use the force Lightning topic. If I want to work with Scratch orgs, I can use the force org topic. If I want to work with creating a Salesforce DX project or something like that, I can use the force project topic. So there are various topics for all the features that the CLI provides. We'll first start by creating a new Salesforce DX project, right? And we'll basically build the same component that Vishwa has showed in the previous demo and see how it works from Salesforce DX, right? So let's go ahead and create a new Salesforce DX project. And the command for that is sfdx force project create. Any guess what we can do to basically find out how to use this? Help. Just shout help with 2 minus, and you got your answers, right? So there's a few flags that you can actually use with this command, and there are a few examples available. So force project create and provide a project name, right? Or you can either do -- project name, the full form, or there is a shorter version of it for -- project name, it is -n, right? This is how this flagging thing works. So I'll do sfdx. Let me just clear it off. SFDX force project create -n. Let's name it LC with DX, Lightning Components in Salesforce DX. Right, so it's going to now create a scaffolding of our Salesforce DX project in a particular format that Salesforce DX needs to work with. And it has created all the files, and I can actually switch to that directory and see the folders. Instead of seeing it on the command line, it's better to have a text editor or an IDE, right? So I'm going to use Visual Studio Code to basically work with this. So this is Visual Studio Code, and I'm going to open our LC with DX folder. Okay, let's have a look at a few of the default files that come with it. There is, first of all, the SFDX project.json file, which is basically used to configure the project, right? And this is the default file. It just says the code is in this folder, and we are using API version 42, right? And there is also another config file, which is called a scratch org definition file, which basically defines how our scratch org shapes up as, right? And this is what you see is the basic, the most least configured file ever, right? So you can just use this file to create a scratch org if you don't want to write something on your own. And then there is our source code folder, which has a default Aura folder automatically created for you, right? So what do we do now? We're going to create a new Lightning component, the same component that Vishwa showed. So SFDX, force, Lightning, component, create, right? And we'll give it a name, quick contact, view, and where do we store it? It's under the Aura folder, right? And this is going to automatically create the folder. Okay, I think I missed an N there. Okay. It always happens. Okay, and it's created the whole component bundle for me. I can have a look at it inside our Visual Studio code editor. So here's the bundle with all the resources that you saw in the component bundle slide there. Let's go into the component markup file where I'm gonna do the same thing Vishwa did, which is to basically copy the code into this. So I go here. So I'm going to copy this and paste it and save, right? Okay, so now what we're going to do is to advance this a little and look at the componentization angle of the component framework. So we're going to create two more components and transform this into a dual mode component, which can basically shift between view mode and an edit mode, right? So this is one component, we have created it. This is the quick contact view component. We'll now create a quick contact edit component, right? So how do I create the component? I can just do force Lightning component create here, or since I'm using Salesforce extensions on Visual Studio Code, there is a shortcut way of doing it. If I just do Command-Shift-P, which is like a feature in VS Code, there's a command palette that actually comes up, and you can actually access a lot of the Salesforce DX commands that are needed for you to work with code, right? So I can just type Lightning component, and it basically gave me all the related commands. I can just select create Lightning component and press enter, and it's asking me for a name. I do a quick contact edit, and the folder, it says automatically gave me the folder name, so I'll just enter that. And it has created our new quick contact edit component for us. The same thing, but done in a shortcut way through the Visual Studio Code text editor. So I'll go into the component, and we're going to now take the second component from here. Okay, let me copy and paste. And this component is not very different from the first component, but you will actually notice that we used, instead of an output field, we used an input field-based component right here. And instead of a record view form, we used a record edit form. It's as simple as that. Small change, which basically changes a lot of things functionality-wise. That's the beauty of base components. So I save this. And now we're going to create one component to basically hold these two components together and show either a view component or an edit component based on whether we are in the view mode or the edit mode, right? So I can either do it from here or from here, right? I'll do it from here. So create lightning component, quick contact, view, edit. All right, so let's take the view edit component as well. And paste it in. So this is not much different from what the previous one was doing. It's the same lightning card. Only difference is that there is an attribute that we're using. Attribute is, you can look at attribute like a variable, right? There is an edit mode attribute, which is a Boolean, true or false. And what we're saying is, if it's edit mode, display the quick contact edit. If it's not the edit mode, display the quick contact view. Simple as that. We're displaying the other components within this component. And there is a button, and when it's clicked, we're running a JavaScript method called toggle mode. And let's take our JavaScript method as well here. Very simple method to basically reverse what is the value of the edit mode attribute. So I take off the basic one and save this. And we're saying if the edit mode is true, make it false. If the edit mode is false, make it true. Right? Just a simple negation algorithm over there. Okay, now we have written our components, and we have to basically see what they do or how they actually look like, right? So we need to push it inside an environment. So we're going to quickly create a scratch org for the same. And I'm going to do sfdx force org create. And if I don't know how to use it, just to help, it will give me some documentation and examples. So I'll do sfdx force org create. And we'll give it a short name, a short alias. We'll say lcdx. And we'll basically have to say where is the config file, the original project scratch org definition file that it needs. So it's in this file. So I just give it that. And what it does right now, it's going to automatically spin up a brand new Salesforce org, and it's going to store the authentication within itself, and it's going to actually take care of the whole authentication itself. And it's already created, and we are already ready to use it, right? You don't even have to log in. You don't have to remember the usernames. The CLI will take care of all those things for you. So to basically access it, all you need to do is just to sfdx force org open. If you know the username, you can use that route as well. But since the CLI takes care of it, I can just do this. Force org open lcdx. It's automatically opened the scratch org for me. It's automatically created the scratch org for me. And here's a brand new scratch org. And this is a blank org. It doesn't have much in it unless we push some code. So let's push some code in it, right? So I'm going to do sfdx force. I'm going to push the source code into this org. So I do force any guess. What's the next command? Exactly. Very easy. sfdx force source push. So what this does is it uses a feature called source sync, which basically keeps a track of the differences between your local Salesforce TX project and your scratch org. And it knows that on the local side, there are these lightning components which are not there in the scratch org, so it pushes them off, right? And clear it. And if I go into the same contact page, let's do that by going into the sales app. And contacts. Let's just create a new contact, A, B, and save. This guy likes initials. Okay, this guy named AB is a contact, but let's go ahead and add our new lightning component, our dual lightning component, which basically appears in the custom components list. Since we already pushed it, it's ready to use. Quick contact view edit, that's the one we are going to use here. So I'm going to drag, drop, save, activate, assign org default, save, back. So there's a new quick contact view right there. There's a new button, click to edit. This is another base component, but it's called lightning button stateful. It has two states. It's either this or that, the done editing state. So I click on that, our edit component shows up. You can finally add some email details, a@b.com, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 0. The most popular phone number ever, right? And save. Okay, let me just quickly refresh this. Okay, the email has been updated, the phone number has been updated. That's because the record view form and edit form use Lightning Data Service internally. They can take care of data access and everything. There's no Apex needed here. So that is our Lightning component here. But now, in the Scratch org, we actually made some changes, right? We actually created a new Lightning page that we have activated for contacts with this component added. This is still metadata. This is still customization. This is still source code. And we're talking about externalizing source code into a version control system or an external file system instead of Salesforce DX. So how do you bring this page back into your source code? So we just do sfdx force source, any guess? Exactly, pull minus u lcdx. So again, the source sync feature is doing its stuff. And it knows that when it compares the local Salesforce DX project in the Scratch org, there's this Lightning page, which is called Flexi page at the API level, which is missing locally, so it brings it down to the local system. And if you look at it inside Visual Studio Code, there is a folder called Flexi pages, which is automatically created because it knows what kind of metadata it is. And basically, the whole metadata XML of this Flexi page is inside your version control system. And now once the code is in your version control system, you can use GitHub or anything to do your source code management. Then you can set up your continuous integration, continuous delivery pipelines, and whatever, a lot of things that can be done. You can package it up and push it into, so you only worked in a Scratch org. It's not a real org, right, that users use, right? You might want to push it into a sandbox for testing, or it might want to push it into a production, right? So for that, you would need, you would do either packaging or use metadata API. That's kind of, we're not going to look at that in today's presentation, but there is a session tomorrow that I'm going to show the details of that you can actually attend to get the details of that. So with that, little more sites of resources that you can actually use to basically learn further. So the demo that you actually saw, you can actually try out a lot more detailed version of it on this URL. Make a note of this URL. It contains a completely detailed tutorial of how to actually try it out yourself hands-on, right? If it's not clear, let me know, right? It's my fault then. Okay, so make sure you take a note of this, and then we'll go to the next slide where I'm going to show you a few more sessions that you can actually attend before tomorrow. So there is a app dev lifecycle session very shortly in like 5-10 minutes. And then there is a Salesforce CLI plugins session. And there is a leverage unlock packages in your Salesforce org session at 12 p.m. tomorrow. Make sure you attend that for sure. It's like an extension to today's to this session. And there are a few circles of success sessions for source-driven development and source-driven development Salesforce DX. Right? You can always reach out to experts at the Salesforce DX booth. And there is a keynote that happened in the afternoon. I hope you had a chance to have a look at that. right? And as always, Trailhead has all the resources that you need to get started with Salesforce DX. There's a whole trail dedicated to Salesforce DX called Getting Started with Salesforce DX. It also has our new Unlock Packages project and module as well. Feel free to try it out. That, let's take some questions. We have like 4 minutes and 40 seconds left.
Oh, yeah.
I think you can come to the mic if you have a question and ask it.
Yeah.
Do you have to have Lightning enabled to be able to use the DX in development, or is there any requirement?
You don't necessarily need Lightning for DX. DX is at an application lifecycle management level. It's not at a UI level, so you can do it without Lightning as well. But we just show Lightning in our demos. Sorry? I'm sorry, you're not loud enough. Can you maybe come to the... Yeah, so if the question is, does it work only with scratch-offs or with sandboxes as well? So the source sync feature, where you can actually push and pull very easily, works only with scratch-offs. If you want to do the same with sandboxes, you need to use the packaging model, the new second generation packaging model. It's a little bit of work, but it's not that complicated. But the simple source sync feature, where you do force source push and pull, that is only for scratch-offs. Yeah.
When you push from local to the remote, or to the scratch org, and if you've deleted metadata, like a field, is that also deleted in the scratch org, or do you have to wait for the...
So when you do a push or a pull, then that deletion gets synced.
Oh, it does?
Yeah. If you do a push, if it's deleted locally, it'll get deleted in the scratch org as well. But if it's a destructive change, it'll actually ask you for a confirmation.
Hi, is there a way to really facilitate, when developers work and then maybe administrators use, for example, Lightning App Builder, and they're not necessarily familiar with all the Git commands and they don't want to use GitHub per se, so is there a way to really easily integrate developers that are doing their dev changes in a scratch org and admin that maybe uses a Lightning Builder?
I would say Salesforce DX is not only for developers, it's aimed at admins as well, but it has to evolve a little to come out with features that are admin friendly. But for now, it's aimed at professional developers. So if an admin and developer can work together, and the admin just lets the developer know what are the changes they have done, the developer can easily pull them into a source control system. An admin might not care about source control, but the developer would. But as of now, there has to be communication between admin and developer. That's the only way.
Thank you. All right, thank you, everyone.
Thank you. I'll be hanging out for a second if you have any questions.